My girlfriend claimed she was infertile, but then got pregnant by my best friend. Now they want child support. So, I made them regret it. I, 32M, should have seen the warning signs. Looking back, they were all there, flashing like neon lights on a dark highway. But when you love someone, you tend to drive with your eyes half closed. Lisa and I had been together for 4 years. We met at a mutual friend's barbecue, where she spilled her drink on my new shoes and spent the next hour helping me clean them. There was something about her laugh that day. It felt real, unfiltered. Within a month, we were inseparable. 2 years into our relationship, during a quiet dinner at home, she told me she couldn't have children. Medical condition, she said. Endometriosis so severe that pregnancy would be impossible. I remember holding her hand across the table as she cried, telling her it didn't matter to me, that we could adopt someday if we wanted to. She seemed relieved, grateful even, and the subject was rarely brought up again. Fast forward to last spring. I'd been planning to propose. Had the ring hidden in my sock drawer and everything. I'd even asked her father for his blessing, which he gave reluctantly. Should have been another red flag. Then one random Tuesday, I came home early from work with a migraine. I heard voices from our bedroom as I stepped into the apartment. That's when my world imploded. Finding your girlfriend in bed with your best friend is a special kind of hell. What made it worse was their reaction, not shock or shame, but annoyance at being interrupted. Like I was the one who had done something wrong by coming home to my own apartment. "This isn't how we wanted you to find out," she said, pulling the sheet up to cover herself. He wouldn't even look at me. This guy, who had been my best friend since college, who had been the best man at my brother's wedding, who had helped me move into this very apartment, sat there staring at the wall. "Find out what?" I managed to ask, though I already knew. "I'm pregnant," she said. 12 weeks. The room seemed to tilt sideways. Pregnant. 12 weeks. Impossible. Unless. "You said you couldn't have kids," I said stupidly, as if that was the main issue here. "I thought I couldn't," she replied. "The doctors were wrong. It's a miracle, really. A miracle." That's what she called it. A fucking miracle. I left the apartment without grabbing anything. Drove to a hotel and paid for a week up front. Turned off my phone. Drank myself into oblivion. When I finally turned my phone back on 5 days later, I had dozens of missed calls and messages. Most were from her and him, full of half-assed apologies and explanations. But there was also a text from her sister, who I'd always gotten along with. It simply said, "They've been seeing each other for over a year." I'm sorry, over a year. While I was saving for a ring, planning our future, while we were still sleeping in the same bed. I met with a lawyer the following week. Thankfully, the apartment was in my name only. I could evict her legally with proper notice. But before I served her the papers, another bombshell dropped. They both showed up at my workplace, asked if we could talk somewhere private. Like idiots, we chose the coffee shop across the street, a place where I'd spent countless lunch breaks. Now it would forever be tainted by what happened next. "We've been talking," he began, as if this was some kind of business meeting. "About the baby." I said nothing, just stared at my untouched coffee. "The thing is," she continued, "we're not ready to be parents. Financially, I mean." Still, I said nothing. "But we know you wanted kids," he said. "You always talked about being a dad someday." I finally looked up, utterly confused about where this was going. She reached across the table, tried to take my hand. I pulled away. "We thought maybe you could help support the baby. You make more than both of us combined. And you could be in the child's life. Like a co-parent." The audacity nearly knocked me backward. They wanted me to financially support their affair baby while they played house with my money. "Let me get this straight," I said, my voice deadly calm. "You two cheat behind my back for over a year. You lie about being unable to have children. Then you get pregnant, and your solution is to ask me to pay for it." "When you put it like that," he started. "How else should I put it?" I stood up, coffee forgotten. "You both disgust me. Stay the fuck away from me." I walked out, ignoring her tears and his calls to come back. But it didn't end there. Oh no, that would have been too simple. The text started that night. How I was being selfish. How this innocent child shouldn't suffer because of adult mistakes. How they had already told their families I would be helping. Her mother even called me, saying I should be the bigger man and do what's right for everyone involved. Then came the social media posts. Vague updates about toxic people and deadbeat dads without naming names. But our mutual friends knew exactly who she was talking about. Some of them actually reached out to me, asking why I wouldn't help my ex and my former best friend. The final straw came when I discovered they had been to my workplace again, talking to my colleagues about how I had abandoned them in their time of need. My boss called me into his office, concerned about the personal drama affecting workplace morale. That's when I decided enough was enough. If they wanted to play dirty, I could play dirtier. And I had one advantage they didn't. I knew the truth. I contacted her sister, who had always disapproved of how her sister treated me. She agreed to meet for coffee, at a different shop, thankfully. What she told me confirmed my suspicions and gave me the ammunition I needed. The medical condition was a complete fabrication. Lisa had never had endometriosis. In fact, she had been on birth control our entire relationship, telling her sister she wasn't ready for kids with me because she wasn't sure I was the one. More importantly, the timeline didn't add up. If she was 12 weeks pregnant when I discovered them, that meant the baby was conceived while we were still very much together, while she was supposedly on birth control, and while she was still telling me she was infertile. Armed with this information, I put together a plan. First, I hired a better lawyer. Then, I documented everything: the texts, the social media posts, the workplace harassment. I collected statements from mutual friends about what they had been told. I even recorded a conversation with her sister confirming the truth about the fake medical condition. Then I waited. I knew they would escalate, and I wasn't disappointed. 3 days later, I was served with papers. They were suing me for child support before the baby was even born, on the grounds that I had promised to provide for the child. They claimed we had a verbal agreement during that coffee shop meeting, which was, of course, completely false. My lawyer was almost gleeful when I showed him the paperwork. "They've just handed us exactly what we need," he said, flipping through the documents. "This is harassment and defamation, clear as day." We countersued immediately, not just for the false claims and harassment, but also for the damage to my professional reputation. The company I work for is conservative and family-oriented. Rumors about me abandoning a pregnant woman could seriously impact my career. The judge assigned to the case was a no-nonsense woman in her 60s who seemed immediately skeptical of their claims. During the first hearing, their lawyer, a friend of his family who seemed way out of his depth, tried to argue that I had a moral obligation to help, given my income and the prior understanding between all parties. My lawyer presented our evidence methodically: the timeline of the affair, the lie about infertility, the harassment campaign, the workplace intrusions, the contradictory statements they had made to different people. When he played the recording of her sister confirming there was never any medical condition preventing pregnancy, I watched their faces drain of color. The judge was not amused. She dismissed their suit with prejudice and granted our countersuit in the same session, ordering them to pay damages and legal fees. She also issued a restraining order preventing them from contacting me or coming to my workplace. But that wasn't the end of it. Word spread quickly through our social circle. People who had been sympathetic to them based on their lies now saw the truth. Their families, who had been pressuring me to do the right thing, suddenly went silent. His parents, who I had always gotten along with, sent me a long email apologizing for their son's behavior and assuring me they had not raised him to be this kind of man. The most satisfying moment came a week after the court ruling. I was having dinner with a few friends who had stood by me through everything when I received a text from an unknown number. It was him. "You've ruined our lives," it read. "Are you happy now?" I showed it to my lawyer, who added it to the file as a violation of the restraining order. But I didn't respond. There was nothing left to say. Last I heard, they moved to another state to escape the reputation they'd created for themselves here. The baby was born a month ago. A boy, according to mutual friends. I feel sorry for the kid. He didn't ask to be born into such a mess, with parents who would use him as a pawn in their games. As for me, I'm slowly rebuilding. I sold the apartment, too many bad memories, and bought a small house on the other side of town. I'm seeing someone new, though we're taking it very slowly. Trust doesn't come easily to me anymore. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I hadn't come home early that day. How long would the deception have continued? Would they have kept up the lie until after the baby was born? Would I have raised another man's child, never knowing the truth? Those thoughts keep me up at night occasionally. But then I remember that no matter how painful the discovery was, finding out the truth set me free. And watching them face the consequences of their actions, that was worth every moment of heartache. They wanted to use me, to take advantage of my kindness and financial stability while betraying me in the worst possible way. Instead, they learned a valuable lesson. Sometimes, karma doesn't need help. It just needs someone willing to stand up and tell the truth. And that's exactly what I did.